Hello. I have to get down a little bit to be in the frame here. Hello. I want to talk about transforming Hollywood. This is a big topic because, Hollywood's a lot older than I am. And filmmaking is not that old, last 100 years. This industry started and blossomed into something that we take for granted now. It's like, oh, what are your favorite movies? This is the way a movie is laid out. This is how to do filmmaking right. Right? There's a lot of assumptions about what a movie is, what a story is, what Hollywood is, and mostly it's become a business. That's the biggest Achilles heel Hollywood has, is that it's a business. Because storytelling, like if you think of storytelling around the campfire, thousands of years ago, not a business, right? Like it could be, maybe someone could tell a story out on the street and get a tip for it or something. But when people are telling like the really important stories around the campfire, right, they're passing on wisdom, not a business. They're not depending on that for their survival. They're not trying to, get a Tesla out of it, which I can relate to because Teslas are really cool. But when people want something for themselves, they will be their standards will lower a lot. They'll be much more willing to create a strategy with the end goal being how much money can I make, rather than how useful is this? How much will this benefit people? How authentic is this art, right? How many film studios do you think are asking as they release $100 million film, how authentic is this art? Probably not happening, right? And that's a major Achilles heel. That's a major flaw in the system. Because if you go to an art gallery, something could sell for millions of dollars and yet still be very authentic. It doesn't have to be designed to be, what do they call that? Like a blockbuster hit, right? It could be very authentic and still be very mainstream. It could be in a mainstream art gallery and have a lot of the artist's essence can be really coming through that. So if it's a business that Hollywood is facilitating, and there's a term, you might be aware of this term in filmmaking, called auteur. I think it's author in French. Auteur filmmaking is basically, it's like artisan filmmaking. So it's filmmaking that comes from a genuine artist, right? And I'm not here to say who's a genuine artist and who's not. I can give a couple of examples of a modern auteur, like Wes Anderson comes to mind. He's very admired, and his movies are big budget, big enough budget to be considered mainstream, right? They're in mainstream theaters, and he puts a lot of himself and his creative abilities into those. And lately, he's not like really my favorite. In the past, I think I've liked his stuff better. Maybe I outgrew it. I'm not sure. It's not a criticism on him, but yeah, I would say that because he has the signature style, it really lends itself to the auteur, labeling him as that. And Paul Thomas Anderson is another one of my favorites. They both happen to have the same last name, which is interesting. I think it's a Dutch last name. Danish last name. Like if you know Pea Soup Anderson, it's the. Oh, actually, that's Dutch though. Interesting. Maybe that's why I'm confused. I think it could be either now. Don't listen to me. I'm not a European expert. But I am a filmmaking expert. I am a storytelling expert. So I'll talk to you about that. So what does transforming Hollywood mean? What does that potentially look like? Could look like a lot of things. I think probably one of the big things that needs to become apparent is very simple. I just talked about this in another video that I made, but I'll touch on it. Hollywood needs to be able to count on products that are good for people can also be financially profitable. Very simple, right? If you make a car that's good for somebody, they're more likely to buy it, right? Tesla has all these new features. People want a Tesla because it's good for them. It's like, oh, I can charge this with, power at my house. I don't have to fill it up with gas. It goes really fast. It's good for going fast. It's a certain size. It can accommodate my stuff. It's pretty. It makes me feel like I'm in luxury, right? It's serving needs. It has features. It's serving needs. It's good for somebody. But there are a lot of films made that are not good for people. And they still make money. And so Hollywood is encouraged to make things that are not good for people because they're making money. And so, either Hollywood needs to change how they do things, or the people need to change how they're spending money, or both, right? But it's a systemic issue because it's broken. It's like if you have a bunch of I want to give an example, like hookers and johns, right? Like, it's probably not good for the hookers. It's probably not good for the johns. I don't really like to call them johns because that's someone's name also. So if your name is John, I apologize for invoking your name. Let's call them patrons. I'm at this little amphitheater now. Maybe I'll sit in the shade here. If Hollywood is exposed to healthy material, right? Beneficial material, which also makes money. It can completely shift the relationship between what would they call that? Like sex sells. Doesn't need to be like that. Gore, drama, like trauma drama, like sells. Doesn't need to be like that. The real drama in humanity, the real drama is between the essence and the personality. Or more accurately, it's between the personality and itself. But the drama between the personality and itself, right? Like a polarity within the personality. We ping pong between, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I good? Am I bad? Am I good? Am I bad? Am I healthy? Am I unhealthy? Am I healthy? Am I unhealthy? Right? This back and forth, it's mental stuff, this mental chatter back and forth is really bad for people. And the essence is behind that. And the essence is ignored and because this mental chatter is so loud, people forget that their essence even exists. It's psycho. And then people are so caught up in these mental loops. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I work? Should I quit? Should I work? Should I quit? Should I date this person? Should I date that person? Should I date this person? Should I date? It's like decisions are so difficult for people because they can't see, because they're not connected to their essence. If you're connected to your essence, you can see. If you're fixated in your personality, you can't see. So the drama within the personality is actually the drama of being in denial of the essence. And if Hollywood started to make content which pointed toward the essence, it would be good for people. It'd be empowering. And I really believe it can make money. If Hollywood keeps making content which causes people to ping pong back and forth between two polarities, like I was demonstrating, we know that'll make money too, but it's not good for people, and it's self-sabotage. It's poisoning the well, right? Hollywood is extracting money from people they're poisoning. It's a sick system. And in some ways, I see it starting to change, like I'm thinking of like Disney's Encanto. Like that was a really cool movie, I thought. It was like very empowering, and it was like several new Disney movies, like forgot the dragon, the last dragon movie or something came out recently. Raya, the last dragon movie. I think some of these movies are actually really cool and have a heart, right? And that heart, that's the essence, right? If a movie is about trying to survive, and that's what it's about, there's no heart. There's what do they call that? The reptile brain. There's it's driven by fear. It's not driven by heart, right? If the big question in the movie is, are they gonna survive? I mean, it's exciting, but it's not that interesting. It's either yes or no.
right? So you can go into the movie like, okay, I'm going to wait 2 hours to find out if the answer is yes or if the answer is no. If the answer is no, my life goes on. If the answer is yes, my life goes on. Doesn't matter. Who cares whether this fictional character is going to survive? That is not an interesting question. And Hollywood just keeps asking this question. And then people keep buying into it. Oh my gosh, this person's got guns. Are they going to survive? Oh my gosh, this person's got superpowers. Are they going to survive? Oh my gosh, this person's got a tidal wave chasing them. They've got dinosaurs chasing them. They've got an angry ex chasing them. Are they going to survive? Who gives a crap whether this fake person is going to survive? That's not an interesting question, right? I was talking earlier about auteurs. Auteurs are not asking that question because that's the question that somebody asks who's traumatized. If somebody's traumatized, they themselves are wondering, am I going to survive? That is the question of what trauma asks. If somebody is able to see a little bit, at least, above the clouds of the trauma, they're asking more interesting questions. They're asking, how can I, for example, they're asking, how can I properly communicate to somebody who I really care about who's not hearing me? Or they're asking, how can I grow into being the man that I've always known I can be, or the woman that I've always known I can be, that some way resembles those who I admire? Or how can I live in the moment instead of being fixated on that ping pong, right? These are like interesting questions. So what Hollywood needs to be able to understand is interesting questions can make just as much money, if not more, than dumbass questions. It's not rocket science. It's like, it seems like it's a risk, right? Like if you were to tell like a Hollywood executive, like, what if you didn't make horror movies anymore? What if you made content that was actually good for people? What if you had interesting questions you were asking instead of the blood factory that you're churning out? What would that be like? But then they think they're going to compromise their $80,000 Mercedes that horror movies bought them, and that's blood money, right? Spending tickets on horror movies bought them that Mercedes. What if people cared about each other? Now that's a revolutionary idea. What if people actually wanted strangers to be healthy and happy? It's like, duh, but it seems obvious to me now, but it's not how people live. That's why I'm making this video. Maybe there's a mosquito chasing me, trying to vampire so it can have a $80,000 Mercedes. Hollywood is run by vampiric energy. It doesn't need to be like that. Money can be made without... Okay, mosquito, I'm going. Money can be made without killing others. Period, right? It's like, it's not complicated. But it appears complicated when
somebody is so motivated to maintain their lifestyle that they're willing to do so at the expense of their sanity and the sanity of others. Just to paint a picture here, like, if there's a war, let's say, people witness a war, people witness gruesome activities. Everybody knows that's difficult, it's traumatizing. Everybody knows that is going to require some therapy or whatever to help them process that. The body doesn't know the difference between a war witnessed in real life versus a war witnessed on a screen, right? The set designers, the actors, the directors are making it as realistic as possible in order to fool the body into being traumatized. That's their job. Their job is to make it as if it's real, right? And if there's a murder scene, if there's a shooting scene, I literally heard somebody say the other day, they want killing in their movies. If there's no killing, I'm not even gonna bother watching it. It's like, what? Where do you think that you got that idea? Do you think that you came up with that idea? Or do you think that idea was programmed into you? You know, what are the chances that you really want killing? I don't think so. It's a way to numb yourself to your actual inner world. It's a way to get your attention distracted from the pain you're avoiding. If you didn't have an agenda to numb yourself, you wouldn't want to watch something with killing, right? Even watching the news, it's the same thing. Don't get me started on the news, man. Oh my gosh. Watching the news is watching a horror movie. It's designed like that, right? Like if I don't know how to say this. Just to make an analogy, if I go help an old woman cross the street, I don't think I've ever done that. I don't know why that's such a cliche thing. Has anybody ever done that? I don't know. Let's say, I'll say something I actually have done. Let's say I give a grapefruit to a homeless person. I did that a few days ago. That doesn't make it on the news, right? If I ask somebody how their day was and they tell me, and then I have a connection with them, that doesn't make it on the news. If I or you or anybody, if there are, let's say, you know, how many people are there? There's like 8 billion people on the world, on the planet. Let's say there are 8 billion people and there are I don't know, 20 billion acts of kindness a day. 20 billion acts of kindness per day. And what they show on the news is war and explosions and drama. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Not at all. It exists. And it's very unfortunate.
What I'm saying is, why do you think it exists? Why does it exist? Maybe it's because one or two of the 20 billion acts of kindness a day are on the news, and it's mostly explosions. It's like Die Hard. It's like the news is making our world appear to be like an action horror movie. It's not an action horror movie. If there are 20 billion acts of kindness a day, which are like very real, and people are kind, like people are actually very kind, and people are actually very caring, that's not represented accurately, right? And Hollywood does the same thing, because it's like the mindset of Hollywood is 20 billion acts of kindness that doesn't sell tickets. But that's because it's not transformational to show acts of kindness. You can start somewhere else, and you can still end up in a beneficial story without having to portray our world as if it's completely belligerent all the time. It's not as it appears to be. So that's my take on transforming Hollywood. Thanks for listening.